The purpose of this video was me just thinking through, how do I cope, or how have people coped with this feeling that life is gonna run out? Okay, we all know that life is gonna run out, but you know that more or less you're in your second half. So of course, one thing that I do, and I know people are doing this earlier and earlier in their life, maintaining their health, doing healthy things, wellness. But this video is more about what to do, barring a big medical event and barring financial resources being not enough. What do I do with this shrinking life? So I have to say, I speak as a dink, D-I-N-K. I have my wife and me. And I would like to posit that most of us, including me, think of it in a accumulative kind of way. This means that I cope by accumulating. And this is also a discussion because what other ways are there to cope with a shrinking life? So what do I mean by accumulation? I mean, it's not about accumulating more money. Of course, some people do that. It's more about accumulating experiences that are positive. It could be having more celebratory events like dinners with people who are close to us, like say our parents, our relatives, our good friends, our loved ones, basically. So instead of once a year Christmas, why not celebrate Christmas 4 times a year? Just as an example. That's the accumulation of positive experiences in a social manner. And of course, in these social events, most of the time you feel good because you're with people. There's another one which is more common, which is travel. So this ties in very much with people who retire. And a common answer to what do I do when I stop working is, oh, I'll travel, right? So maybe you didn't have the chance to go to this or that place when you're so busy working, raising your kids, surviving. And now maybe if you have more time and maybe enough money to do some of the travels without thinking that you need to support so-and-so person, you may go and travel. So taken to the furthest extent, it could be maybe you used to travel twice a year with the children on school holidays. Now you're like, I want to travel 4 times a year with or without the children. Or if you're a dink, or if your children have already grown up and you have an empty nest. I know some people who have made it to one location a month, which means accumulating 12 delightful travel experiences in a year. That's the accumulative method. I may be wrong, and please correct me, but I think many of us think of it this way: more positive social experiences, more positive travel experiences. I think of dinners and meetups, and I think of travels to different locations. So it really makes sense to me, and I'm thinking in this manner, but I wonder if there are other ways to think about it. And if you have a perspective on this, I would love to hear about it, especially those who have gone past 50, 60, 70. You may know life much, much better than I do. It could be a hobby or an activity that you would never indulge in your younger years because you have to make a career, reach a level of financial stability, support your kids, but now you maybe can. So I think of two guy friends who in their late 30s pursued art, watercolor and sketching, and they worked in business, finance type of jobs, and they managed to reach a certain level of financial stability, and they were able to indulge themselves in learning something nice, accumulating hobbies. That's one way to do it. Hobbies do engage your interest and it keeps you going. It keeps things purposeful. Okay, two more. One of it would be volunteering. Some people have a heart and maybe they may not be a social worker as their job in their 20s to 40s, but when they feel stable enough, they volunteer. I know people who volunteer in church and in the temple. In Singapore, there are many people already successful in their corporate life and they give back. They give back in business-like endeavors that are more social or more like an NGO. So I would put that under volunteering, but because their skill set is in business, they help out in those ways. And speaking of business, there are people who may not want to volunteer and give back, but they want to do a kind of business that they like to do. For example, maybe I'll have a cafe or a bakery, or you could be an artist and you draw something and you express yourself and you're able to sell it. Or it could be being a dog trainer later in life. So this would belong to turning your passion into a business later in life. Then the question is, do we start indulging our passions and turning them into careers early in life, like right upon graduation? Or do we wait until we're financially secure with a job that pays the bills, supports us and the family, and now we can indulge ourselves? Of course, a very common approach to this is secure yourself first and indulge later. But I know there are other ways around it. There's the other approach, which is to ride the wave of your passions and turn it into something that sustains you financially. I don't know what experiences you might have had, but please share if you're on either side of this debate. The point of this video was me thinking about what do you do if you have a blank slate? Having a blank slate, you can compare it to in retirement, you're faced with such a decision. You can also compare it to UBI, Universal Basic Income. This is also an ideal situation where you have your basic needs met and your job is not so strongly tied to your ability to meet daily necessities. So with a blank slate, what do? You do things that are meaningful for you, right? Whether it's volunteering or pursuing your art or doing something where you find meaning going to every day. But what is this? I think it's a very hard decision because it's just as hard to find this when you're in your teens. It's like, what am I good at? What do I want to do in my life, right? When you start working, where you may have your interests and passions opposed to what's practical. And then you may decide, okay, let's do what's practical first and then pursue my interests and passions later. It's always a difficult decision to make. And there are also parents who have passions that they have suppressed. And so they cannot seize the day because they do not have a blank slate. And therefore they may meet with this choice perhaps somewhere later in their life where they're like, oh, now my kids have grown up. I don't have to support them. What do I do with my life? Do I even have passions? What's there to seize now in the second half of my life when I'm 50, where I know that my runway is getting shorter and I know that I do want to occupy myself? Do I think in an accumulative manner? Am I going to take up another hobby? Am I going to learn a new language? Am I going to learn a new skill set that I can use? Am I going to have another career even? So myself, I'm thinking in terms of accumulating experiences. So do I have more experiences, like I mentioned earlier? Or do I want to have more intense experiences? Which could be, do I up and go and live in Japan, find an IKEA and start building a house? Or do I do more of what I've been doing? I was talking to someone just yesterday about this here in Penang, and they are parents, and when their kids grow up, the lady said she's going to spend more time gardening because that's what she enjoys. So it's something that she already does, but she's going to have more time to do that. And for the guy, he wants to spend more time doing pottery, enjoying the process of baking in an organic kiln. It's that whole experience. So it's like something he already does, but doesn't have time for now. To me, it sounds like chop wood, carry water. And I think this approach is maybe a little less cumulative. It's still cumulative, right? You're doing more of those same things you like to do, but more focused on being instead of doing. So I don't have the answer. This is my digital diary, right? So if you have different perspectives, please let me know. And I think that's the end of the video.